Welcome to the BuyBox Experts podcast. We bring to light the unique opportunities brands face in today's e-commerce world.
Hi, I'm James Thompson, one of the hosts of the BuyBox Experts podcast. I'm a partner with BuyBox Experts and the former business head of the Selling on Amazon team at Amazon, as well as the first account manager for the Fulfillment by Amazon program. I'm the co-author of a couple of books on Amazon, including the recent book, Controlling Your Brand in the Age of Amazon. Today's episode is brought to you by BuyBox Experts. BuyBox Experts takes ambitious brands and makes them unbeatable. When you hire BuyBox Experts, you receive the strategy optimization and marketing performance to succeed on Amazon. We also help investors with due diligence services. Go to buyboxexperts.com to learn more. Before I introduce our guest today, I want to send a big shout out to the team at Disruptive Advertising. For off-Amazon advertising, Disruptive Advertising offers the highest level of service in the digital marketing industry. Focusing on driving traffic, converting traffic, and enterprise analytics, Disruptive helps their clients increase their bottom line month after month. Check out disruptiveadvertising.com to learn more. Our guest today is Yoni, Chief Operating Officer and co-founder of GETIDA, a service that helps FBA sellers get reimbursed from Amazon on revenue that wasn't properly paid out initially to the sellers. Utilizing GETIDA's unique auditing technology, Amazon sellers can be assured that all their funds and inventories are being properly accounted for and audited, providing peace of mind and maximum profitability. Previously, Yoni was a large Amazon seller for several years, where he learned firsthand what can happen to your FBA inventory. Yoni, welcome and thank you for joining us today on the BuyBox Experts podcast.
Glad to be here. Thank you so much, James. Hello, everybody. It's great to be here.
So, Yoni, let's start by asking you, how did you first get exposed to the Amazon marketplace?
I think like many, originally, if I have to dig down deep, it's as a consumer. I started shopping on Amazon. I think that one of the first things I ever bought was Dr. Martin shoes or boots. So shout out to them. I think they're doing okay right now, more than a decade after. But early on, I started selling stuff online for, it was mainly on eBay. And then 2013, we realized that Amazon is an up and coming beast that has opened up as a marketplace. Mm-hmm. We're really focused in the early days on watches. And I think that category just opened up for third-party sellers in 2013. We kind of knew about it before, but it wasn't open yet. And once it was open, for third-party sellers, we jumped into it, and we never looked back. I guess they have that moment. That was 2013 will be the exact year we started, but okay. I would say 2008-9 was my first recollection of Amazon as a marketplace that started.
So you're now selling products on Amazon. At some point, you say, "Wait a minute, there's this thing called FBA, and there are the problems around my FBA inventory." Take me back to what happened to make you think about we should build an FBA refund solution.
Got it. So what happened was when we started selling on Amazon, we were FBM, fulfilled by merchant.
Yep.
That was the model. That's what we kind of proceed of any marketplace because we're also, selling on eBay. I think even overstock.com was an option for us, or even Rakuten. Today's Rakuten was called buy.com or buying.com.
Yes.
Doesn't matter, but all of a sudden, we realized there's two options to sell your inventory on Amazon: FBM, fulfilled by merchant, or FBA. We said, okay, let's experiment with that FBA. I think you were kind of created that environment anyways in the back end. If I think right, you were in charge of that program, and I don't know how and what you guys did and that magic that sucked us in, but it did. But we were not that. It's not like today, everybody takes for granted. Of course, there's going to be FBA. For us, it was like an experiment. We want to understand what is this and who's standing behind this. We understand that Amazon's standing behind it, but what is their exact policy? So I remember we invested $10,000 in a shipment in products, to source products to send to FBA. And for us back in 2013, it was a lot of money, $10,000, like, making a big gamble, big ballers. So we actually took the moment to read Amazon's policies, and then we called it in. We talked to seller support, and we asked them what's going on. If any of this, inventory units get anything that happens to it, what are your assurances? They say, okay, check out this page and that page. And we discovered that really Amazon has, a unique policy in place. They call it the FBA reimbursement policy. And just as a side note for the listeners to kind of learn that every unit that you ship to the fulfillment center is insured under this policy up to the value of $5,000. So if you ship a unit that's worth $4,999, it's covered if anything happens. But if it's worth $5,000 and a penny, and if something happened, you're screwed. Just so you know. So just so you know the elements there.
Okay.
So we discovered that early on. So we were happy. I said, okay, at least it's in writing. It's not just in there. They're not just telling it over the phone. It's in writing. They showed us where is it in writing. So we're very, very prudent about that. I don't know why. Sometimes in life I'm not that prudent, but for that particular business decision, I was, and my partner Max as well. So we shipped it in, and we're crossing our fingers. It's going to go well. It's going to go smooth. But lo and behold, the first shipment, something happened. There was a few missing units, and we shipped 100 something units. A few units were missing, so we opened the case. I said, we'll investigate, and they did investigate and said, oh, we're sorry, we apologize, we lost it, and because of that, here's the reimbursement. So that pulled a switch on a business level. Not even talking about reimbursements on selling on Amazon FBA moment. That was like, okay, these guys are serious. This Amazon as an organization, as a company, they stand behind what's they write, and we could probably do a lot of business here. They take full responsibility. So that gave us a lot of confidence moving forward. So the next shipment was higher and bigger, and then we went into hundreds of thousands worth of shipments, and the rest is history on the retail level. But what happened was, okay, so we knew that the entry level is easy, right? You ship 100 units, they receive 99 units. That's easy to reconcile.
Yep.
But that was just a firing shot. We were very interested in what's happening afterwards. Where is it stored? When it's moving around. So we early on we always downloaded the data. Excel spreadsheets, and we always reconciled, and always we found like discrepancies inside the warehouse. Units were being lost, or damaged, or destroyed, or disposed, or overcharged with fees. Also, returns that are coming back. There's being all these they're being refunded incorrectly and stuff like that. We always found it, and we always opened cases for it. And Amazon, thankfully, really took care of it. So we did it for our own needs. And we did this for a couple of years. But what happened was, as a business, we grew to such a degree that our spreadsheets were breaking. We couldn't continue anymore. Right. Just to give some backdrop story, we started in 2013, but very quickly the business grew from 0 to 20 million. And then we became a part of a larger organization that together as a group, we did about 100 million. So the basic tools we were using were not good enough. So we had to make a decision, which was based on two components. First thing was to create a technology that's able to handle all this mass data that comes at us daily, right? It's coming daily, all this data. Create the technology that's able to analyze and audit it constantly. So that's the first component. But the second component was to create a dedicated team that its whole purpose in this world is sit on that data points and reconcile it back and forth with Amazon until there's resolution. Because what we discovered early on that the discrepancy rate ranges between 1% to 3% on an annual level, at least for us, right? So if we're doing $1 million, that's 10 to 30,000. If we're doing $20 million, it's 200 to 600,000. If we're doing 100 million, that's 1 to 3 million a year. So we said,
a lot of money.
At that scale, that you need a dedicated team. Yep. That's all they know. That's all the purpose they have. And once we're able to create that solution for our own needs, we did pretty well with it. And that was the only intention. The intention was blast it on Amazon, grow, keep growing, keep marching. But what happened along the lines was we told some of our friends from the industry that we have this ability, and they told us, help us, we'll pay you.
Yep.
That was the early genesis of GETIDA. Yep. That's around 2015, 16.
So your company exists explicitly to address the reality that Amazon makes a lot of mistakes handling inventory. Tell us how that's possible given all of Amazon's sophisticated software. What have you learned doing this that's made you realize that Amazon software alone doesn't make this foolproof?
Right. So the software, I'm going to put this out there. The software that they have built is really amazing. It's nothing else out there, because if I mention that the discrepancy rate is 1% to 3%, let's flip it for a moment. It means that Amazon does an amazing job 97, 98, maybe 99% of the time, not with just our inventory, everybody's inventory. That's hundreds. Nobody can even fathom how big it is.
Yep.
If you go to Adidas or Nike or all these big brands and ask them logistically, when you move your inventory from your warehouse to another warehouse, if you'll be happy with 1% to 3% the discrepancy, they says, of course. They easily cross 5, 6, 7, 8%, easily, constantly, all the time. That's the rule of life. When you move inventory around from one place to another, in-house or between warehouses, things just fall off through the crack. Software can't handle the fact that if you shipped 2,103 boxes, only 2,102 boxes came in. for whatever reason, maybe fell off the truck, maybe who knows?
Yep.
People so I think so. In other words, what I'm referring to, it might be the human element that it's still there, and it causes that 1 to 3% discrepancy rate. But also, things follow. So even if the machine, the Kiva machine, the robot, picks a unit from the bin or something, that unit drops for whatever reason, that's damaged unit that needs to be recovered. So in between those lines, there's still room for discrepancies, even though they created the most fabulous logistical machine the universe has ever seen. Inside of it, they should be definitely proud, but inside of it, there's elements that need to be addressed. And that's our purpose and mission. That's where we live, that 1 to 3% domain, just to put in perspective.
So you talked about 1 to 3%. Are there other rules of thumb that we should be thinking about as Amazon sellers in terms of or proportions of inventory that Amazon mishandles or loses? I mean, have you broken down the different types of mistakes that commonly happen?
Yeah, I'll give kind of more of a breakdown to how we high level, how we recognize the things. But another way to look at it is that if for every 100 units that a seller ships to FBA, between 1 to 3 units might get affected somewhere along the life cycle of the product inside Amazon's realm. Let's put it this way. Let me touch a few. I touched the early one when you shipped 1,000 units. It's inbound. They received 990. That's easy. Inside the warehouse, right? That's when, between the bins or between the teams, that's when things happen. But also between the warehouses. Sometimes Amazon might ship your products from Kentucky to California to Nevada. Things happen there. From Amazon to the consumer, things happen there. By the way, this already starts to involve external powers such as carriers. It could be UPS, FedEx, Post Office. Then once again, from the consumers back to Amazon, also known as returns, refunds, things happen there. Though we needs to be reconciliation. And of course, if any seller does removal orders and ships back the units, also things happen there. So all these friction points logistically, they have different characters and different traits and different data sets that we look into. And of course, once we find the discrepancy and it needs to be reconciled, we bring it to Amazon attention. And of course, only if the eligibility is recognized, then Amazon provides a successful reimbursement.
Where does customer fraud fit into this? Customer returns an item and you get a brick. You get a brick back rather than the product you actually sold them.
Yeah. So that is okay. So you're referring to the removal orders. So so we're not the police. Just to make it perfectly clear, we're not the police. So what we do see is that sometimes you shipped an iPhone and you get a brick back. We saw this a lot. I think it was around 2017. That was really a pandemic because those iPhones were selling for $600, $800, or $1,000 or something. We saw one case that somebody ordered about 20 of those. They shipped it overnight to they got it next day. And then they right away, as soon as they got it sent all back, lo and behold, 20 units, which were $20,000, were eventually they were unsellable or unfulfillable. The seller did a removal order, and then they had to follow kind of a serious claim. But why does it happen? I don't know. But there's just if somebody listens to this and didn't realize, there's an opportunity to get a reimbursement or a recovery if you essentially what internally Amazon calls a switcheroo. You send a certain unit like an iPhone. Instead of getting an iPhone, you get a box. Inside of it, there's a little stone. Or if you ship your iPhone, you got a baseball. That's not the same item. You're eligible to get a reimbursement. So hopefully you get that back. And the baseball, if you like to play baseball, it's another one. So depends how you look at it.
I'll sell baseballs all day long if I get brand new iPads back.
There you go.
So let me ask you this. What kind of mistakes is Amazon more likely to make today than say 5 years ago when you first got started looking at FBA reimbursements?
Oh, that's a tough one. So to be fair, not all sellers are created equal because simply the products that they sell are just different. I'll put it this way. There's certain types of products that are more prone to get affected. Let's make it simple. Fragile products. You're selling glass cups of wine. They have a tendency to get damaged more than, let's say, a baseball. It doesn't really get ruined or anything like that. So it depends less on Amazon's technology or on Amazon's ability to refine itself. It depends, honestly, a lot on the product profile. But another resolution we discovered is that not all Amazon FBA warehouses are created equal as well. Some warehouses are just more superior than the others. They just know how to handle things. They have a better team or better dynamic of a team. Or maybe there's a new team that they hired, so they're just breaking them in. Once again, that human element is something that we, it's not software related, so it fluctuates. And because of that, there's kind of always a need. The moment robots will be producing everything, packaging everything, deliver everything, that's maybe we'll be able to see come as close as possible to that 100% mark of zero discrepancies. But I think we're 50, maybe 100 years away, maybe more. I'm not a prophet or saint, but it will take a little more work from all of us.
Because of the scope of error detection that you're doing, does Amazon ever come to you and ask you for that kind of data and say, show us which of our warehouses are doing well, show us which types of products aren't doing as well? Is there any outreach there that
They're
ever
not
happens?
not yet. We are, between you and I, and I guess who's
Yeah.
ever listening, I will be
Yeah.
interesting to see if we can help
Yeah.
prevent this in the first place. It will be our pleasure to
Mhm.
provide from our data and our mindset, our angle and point of view to Amazon, so they can at least identify the warehouses that maybe are falling underneath the benchmark. Maybe push it up there, so you prevented those issues from coming in the first place. That's one thing we would like to be of service to the community and in the marketplace. In addition to that, maybe also kind of the fraud detection level. If Amazon can earlier spot on, more issues of consumer abuse.
Yes.
Maybe help prevent it. Before it becomes a bit too harsh. Will protect Amazon. Will protect the sellers. Just to create a better environment. So we do have a kind of a passion for that, but it's too early, I guess, for us to have this discussion. They have so many. You've been there. You have to have so many things on their mind. We'll probably line number a million something plus. Who knows?
So let me ask you, why does Amazon provide reimbursement to third-party sellers in the first place? Why do they even care about having a process?
Because it's fundamental. I'll take you back to our mindset back in 2013, because today Amazon is a beast, is a giant. So everybody takes for granted that trust.
Yep.
But early on, no, I didn't have that trust. I said, okay, Amazon's fine. They sold a few books, a few shoes. All right, so I need to know that my investment is protected. So that is the cornerstone of the FBA program, which is wildly successful on a global level. That trust is there. It's laid out in the early fundamentals of having it's an insurance policy. Because if the moment they say, you send us $1 million worth of products and goods, the moment it comes to warehouse, whatever happens, we're not responsible. If it gets lost, somebody has a heavy hand, they take it, whatever it is, all of a sudden, all that infrastructure they created in hundreds of billions of dollars worldwide will crumble. So it's essentially, it's an insurance policy that they have in place for the third-party seller to know that your products and your life's investment, your business investment is in good, trustworthy hands. And that alone fertilizes the big picture of having a marketplace, product variation, product selection, good, a whole thing is based on the third-party seller rise, which heavily is relied on FBA. It's all interconnected, and it stems from that trust that they laid out early on. I don't know, I can ask you, were you aware of these policies back in the day with FBA at all?
Yeah, I mean, there was some stuff that we did, and back then, there were some types of errors that we would automatically reimburse. But I guess that leads to the next question. Why do I need an external service if Amazon is already looking for mistakes it's making and looking to make those reimbursements back to FBA sellers?
Got it. So that becomes a bit more interesting, right? Because you can say, all right, so there's all these errors. How come? And Amazon is a tech savvy company. What's going on? So the reality is, I don't know how to explain it, but the reality is that Amazon automatically does reimburse for whatever their software and the systems already catches.
Yep.
But if you look closely into the terms of service, they tell you we're going to automatically reimburse you for anything that we find. We need about 30 days for that since the incident happens. But after 30 days, it's up to you, the seller, to audit us, inspect us, and of course, anything that we left behind, you have the opportunity to open a case and reconcile it. And that is the moment we can come and help, alleviate that need or that function or that pain for the sellers. So this is the fundamental work. I'm not sure why, but it's self-evident that it's even after they do all their rounds and there's still all these missing elements. But I'll be honest with you, internally, what happened to us over the years, for the past 5-6 years, is that the data set keeps on changing, keeps on updating. And we always kind of find new types of variations of all these discrepancies, and which makes us usually a few steps ahead, right, of Amazon, because once again, they have so many other moving parts to deal with. And then we discover kind of new claims and almost like the virus. There's all these strains or all these mutations. If we can borrow a little bit from the COVID world, you have the issue, but all these variations. Same thing here. There's always that issue, always these variations, and if we borrow from Pfizer or Moderna, we try to always have an immediate answer to these variations as soon as possible. So we're some sort of a vaccine.
Well, let me ask you this: what are the types of mistakes that we're starting to see now, ones that you get excited that you're able to detect that may not be so obvious? Can you give an example of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that is kind of painful for many sellers, they're aware of it, but not, there's still lack of awareness, is the fulfillment fees. By the way, also the fulfillment fees along the years always change. The tiers kind of change.
Yeah.
But you ship a product in, let's say it's supposed to be under a pound and under 10 inches. they're supposed to charge you, let's say like $2.50, the entry level tier.
Sure.
But instead of that, what happens is, somewhere along the lines, the information changes, and now all of a sudden they're charging you from a different tier, because the amount of fee that they charge you is based on the weight and dimension. So the larger and heavier Amazon thinks your product is, the more they're going to charge you in fulfillment fees, or to be more exact, the pick and pack fees. Whenever they pick the unit from the bin, they package it in a box. So you ship your products in, it's supposed to charge you $2.50. You discover they're charging you more. How can that be? I'll give you two examples that I'm familiar with. One example is that every few weeks or a few months, Amazon might scan your product through their big machine called cubic scan machine. You probably are more,
yes.
you know it better than I do. But in that machine, whenever they do that scanning, there's some sort of noise. Let's take, for example, a handbag. You put a handbag through the machine, it has a strap hanging loose. That strap is adding 20, 30 inches. All of a sudden, boom, the whole information kind of changes. And then they start to overcharging you with all these fees. If you're not aware of this reality and you don't order for this, you're going to get heavily taxed or heavily overcharged with all these fees for all this time. But this is limited to 90 days of recovery, by the way, not 18 months. Sellers got 90 days to recover this. But a second variation of this same problem that we saw is that somebody's attacking you, right? You're selling on Amazon. I'm your competitor. You and I are both selling on the same product. We're competing on rank. Maybe even the same price. I take your ASIN, I list it on my Amazon account. I never offer it out, but only thing I do, I change the weight and dimensions. Instead of being a pound, I write it's 100 pounds. Instead of being 10 inches, I say it's 100 inches, whatever it is. And I distort the data. And from that moment on, you're being overcharged. And if you're not prudent, you're not savvy, all of a sudden you're making less and less margin, or you're going to the negative.
Yep.
So it just shows you how sophisticated and weird and kinky things can be in the discrepancy level. That's why this is just one example out of all this myriad of other issues. So whatever it is, you have to have, I guess, the handles in place to make sure, check mark, check. Oh, an issue, recovery in the right moment at the right time, because there is a time game to this. After a while, things expire. Your eligibility to get recovery is expired and it's lost forever. So it's one more component out of the whole crazy components, amount of set of components that an Amazon seller is faced with, and it's constantly evolving. Even on the, like I mentioned, on the reimbursement level, the data set and the complication and complexities kind of have all of their variations. Same as advertising. If you look at the advertising console today and what it was 5 years ago, completely different. It's just more robust, more intrigued. Makes it thrilling for us internally, but for the Amazon seller, they need to have the awareness that it's a game for professionals. It's only going to get more and more complicated, more elevated, and you have to be ready.
So there are a lot of companies in the same space as you that do this FBA recovery. Talk to me about what makes GETIDA different, better, distinct from everybody else.
Yeah, so off the offset, I'll say that we love our competitors. They do a very good job. I'm not going to say anything besides that. But I guess a few points of distinction that I can kind of clearly make is a few fundamental ones. I'll just make it in a nutshell, because I can probably talk about how we like to do our work differently from anybody else for a long time. But on a high level, we're an authorized solution provider by the platform. So we got vetted. Amazon knows who we are, knows our team, knows where we store our data, because there's also data security and private policy concerns. We audit billions of dollars worth of transactions every day across our platform. That's why we also got vetted by Amazon, so we're authorized. By the way, we're authorized on two components, on the App Store, but also on the SPN level, the service provider network, because I want to make a distinction. We're not a tool, we're not a software, we're a solution. And as a solution, we use software and a dedicated team to create the solution of maximum recovery. So on the technology, at the technological end, we're authorized on the App Store because that involves MWS credentials and API. On the service level, because we have a dedicated team. So that's something to get out of the way. So if anybody comes to you and says, I want to help you with recovery, but they're not authorized by Amazon, maybe you should have second thoughts who are you giving access to your data. In addition to that, a big part of our team are ex-Amazon employees. We used to work in those departments, the FBA Reimbursements department. So we know what we're looking for, how to present the issues, how to manage the cases, and deal with all the back and forth to get the maximum recovery. And another one that I'll just make it even more simple, we consider ourselves actual auditors, meaning as an auditor, all you look for something very, very simple and basic, a deficit, a minus. If everything's zero, it checks out, no problem. If I find the minus, my mission is to take care of it. So if you're using a tool, for example, they're giving you the data, you file it in, and then Amazon start rejecting it. But if you look closer to data, there was no reason for the rejection. So you need a skilled team that knows the data, or auditors, to say, hey, hold on, Amazon, take a look at the information again, maybe in a different angle, okay? Or maybe you have a different mathematical equation. See the deficit, you recognize it, and they go again, they look at it, oh, you apologize, here's your reimbursement. That ability to convert a rejected claim into a paid claim because you're hardcore auditor,
Yes.
that's very effective in making sure everybody gets the maximum.
So with the rise of these brand aggregators, these companies buying up these Amazon businesses, they're literally growing organizations with hundreds of millions of dollars of FBA revenue. Do you think that they're going to start performing some of the same tasks, or do you think that they're overlooking some of these opportunities to also be reimbursing lost dollars?
I'll tell you this way: we already work with the largest ones. We're in touch for a few years already with them.
Yep.
In the early years, they were simply not aware of this opportunity because they're so busy on creating procedures and identifying a good brand to buy or not to, or not to buy. High level, overwhelming majority of what comes to their doorstep doesn't get purchased, by the way. So because they have the whole filtering or distillery process that they do. Should we buy, should not buy? Then everything kind of on the operational level, at least in the early days, was kind of, we can wait on this. First thing, start buying. And once we are able to come in conversation with them, we identified that, operationally, they're kind of trying to figure out what's going on. But now, a few years after, I can say that this is part of their SOP. The ones that are serious about it, they're the largest players. They have this in their standard procedure, knowing that this is another checkbox you got to cross, which is auditing, making sure you get the maximum, get the money back into your organization that you have eligibility to get, and keep fueling the growth. So this is how they look at it today. So any aggregator listening to this who has not yet identified this as a must do or to do thing on their organization, this, I encourage you to start right now. You can do it independently. You can do as much as you want on your own.
Right.
I encourage you to do so. If you ever need help from anybody, there's a whole industry here, waiting to help you.
So let's change gears a little bit. If I'm an FBA seller today, what can I do to reduce the likelihood that Amazon will make mistakes handling my FBA inventory, and hence reduce the likelihood that I'm owed a bunch of money?
Got it. So I'll touch two examples because they'll probably be the most impactful ones. All the other ones, I'm not sure, nothing much can be done, to be fair, to be frank. But one thing definitely sellers can do is be very thoughtful in the way you create your products and your product packaging. Is it susceptible to being damaged or being broken? Or at least when Amazon received, let's say a consumer bought your product, if you have all these unique seals on it, and the consumer opened it, but really they didn't do anything. It just opened it, but it changed their mind. They don't want it. It's brand new. But when Amazon receives it, it appears to be kind of used. They're going to deem it as unsellable. They're going to send it back to you, and then more logistically things can happen. All these discrepancies can happen. So do whatever you can to make your products not get damaged. Also, when they come back to Amazon's hands, they always look new. Even if somebody bought it, they never use it, and there's no special seals or anything that they tear apart that can reduce the friction point logistically, because it all involves logistics. So the more you can minimize the logistical movements of your product, the less you'll probably discover discrepancies. That's on this level. In addition to that, this is a general tip anyways, not necessarily considering reimbursements, is you got to keep in mind that when you're selling online, you're selling a brick and mortar, different games. When you're selling brick and mortar, when you got to have a big bulky product that will fight to be on the shelf, right? So you're going to have heavy and bulk packaging. Think about potato chips. You ever wonder why half of the chips is just air? They need shelf space. They gotta arm there and wrestle. But that's not a good practice on Amazon. If you take that potato chip shipped to FBA, that extra air, or if that dimension puts in a different tier, then all of a sudden Amazon charges all these fees. It's going to be a big loss for the seller. So keep in mind that maybe create your packager, your packaging for online sales, especially for FBA, to make it the leanest and possible. Make it small, elegant, not heavy. So you're in the lowest tier possible of weight and dimension. So you pay the least amount of fees. So that's a gold mine tip. But of course, if Amazon, it's much easier to also audit. If you're on the lowest tier, you always need to be charged $2.50. The moment you see they're charging you $3 or $5, you can catch it on the spot. So that helps a lot. And keep in mind, the moment they bought your product, your digital shelf is your listing, right? As opposed to brick and mortar. Your shelf is the listing. It needs to look beautiful, enhanced brand content, the copyright, the video, all that. That's how you scream and shout to the consumer, buy me. Because the moment they already buy you, no matter what you're going to do, they're always going to get it Amazon's packaging. And they're already sold in your product. You don't have to sell it again with the big, shiny, flashy box. The only thing they want in that moment is the utility. They want to use the product. They already made the sale. So nice, elegant, packaging will do just fine. So hopefully that's a good tip for listeners out there to take upon.
I'd love to give our listeners some kind of a story around some of the most egregious recovery you've ever had to do, where something was just completely crazy Can you share a story of something you've seen one of your clients have to work through?
Yeah, I'll share with you this one. This one was over $40,000 worth of claim.
Wow.
So we do have a kind of inner department that we call specialty claim, because you have the kind of repeat and rinse kind of issue that we see, but there's always a room for the awkward, horror stories. So we hold a deep place in our heart for these issues. We try as much as possible. There's never a guarantee, but makes long story short, the seller was supposed to ship 1,200 units to Amazon, and Amazon said, okay, let's make a split. 100 units is ship here, and 1,100 units is split there. So both together are 1,200. And they did the exact opposite. Instead of shipping where they're expecting 100 units, they shipped 1,200 units. Or they're shipping 1,100 units, they shipped 100 units.
Yep.
So to reconcile was very difficult. So wherever they shipped the 1,100 units, Amazon was expecting 100. So whoever was in the fulfillment center received 100. The software said received, and the rest of the 1,000 units that were there, lo and behold, they didn't bother doing anything. They just never received it. So you have a 1,000 unit discrepancy. Each one was like $40+, in value. So it was very hard to explain to them, listen, Amazon, this is how it works. We wanted to ship 1,200 units. You told us to split it, right? The seller. And this and this happened. And it was very hard for us to explain to them what's going on. They said, yeah, wherever it was 100, we received 100. No problem there. And wherever you shipped, we're supposed to ship 1,100, you only shipped 100, but we can't find the rest, so claim denied. So no. That, we have to arrange the whole thing and repeat it again and again.
Yeah.
We have to escalate to leadership and this and this and that. I'll tell you this way. After countless touch points, it took almost 4 months. I'm glad to say we're able to get a recovery. And I'll tell you the plot twist that helped us get this resolved. So what we did was we actually, after like 3 or 4 months, we dived into the data. We used an external tool. I don't know if anybody heard of it. It's called Camel. You ever heard of it?
Yes. Of course.
So this is a tool you kind of can see the history of an ASIN on Amazon. So what we use that tool, and we discovered that on the same date that those units got short received by Amazon, all of a sudden Amazon started to sell those units. So essentially, instead of those 1,000 units that were missing, Amazon received it to their inventory because they didn't know what to do with it. They sold it very, very quickly. So they were already sitting on the money. And so we presented to them all this data. Say, oops, you're right. Now we can really recognize where these missing units went to. And here's the reimbursement. So it did have a happy ending. So that was a quirky offsite story that ended up well. But underneath the current, there's a lot of issues that still happen around where we have a lot of exposure to, but they don't end up well. And there's a lot of pain behind the whole mission of reconciling things. But we were committed to do as much as possible. For the overwhelming majority ends up well, but the ones that don't, I still feel bad. I wish I could do more. And that's when you enter into the spiritual realm. Just wish for better days.
When I was working with FBA sellers, what I said to them is, if you're only going to do one thing with FBA, that is make sure you actually ship in what you say you're going to ship in. And by the way, what you're going to ship in is what Amazon tells you to ship in. So make sure those line up. And if you've got employees that don't pay attention to details like, oh, this goes to this location, this goes to that location, probably FBA is not the right place for you. Oh, well, what's the odd mistake here or there? Believe me, it's a big deal. So just get it right the first time.
Get it right the first time. Great tip, because there's the mold. Make sure you fit the mold, because if you don't, it can be very painful.
So let me ask you, in closing our conversation today, are there any types of tools or companies that you've worked with throughout this process that have been particularly beneficial for helping you build your business and helping you create more visibility for what you do for Amazon sellers?
I'm going to separate this question because there's our experience as Amazon sellers, and there's which we don't do anymore. But in our experience as GETIDA as a solution provider. So,
well, let me ask the question a little bit differently.
Yeah, go ahead.
You've evolved as a company over the years of doing what you're doing. What kinds of learnings from other companies have you most benefited from that have allowed you to become as good as you are today?
From the industry, from our industry?
Yes.
Oh yeah. Yes. So Ticometrics. I always draw my inspiration from Ticometrics. The whole user experience, the technology, how it works, how the dashboard they communicate with you. I always admire that. Many of our clients do use them, and I hear the same thing. I'm an admirer also, Helium 10, how they were able to build up from the grounds up the whole company, 90 codes. The whole thing is very, very inspiring to us, and the ability to create a global solution that helps the sellers community worldwide. Really, This is something we're very, very zoned in on. What kind of solution we create, which, this whole industry, we love the industry. We grew up, it brought us to a financial success as sellers, and now as solution providers. At least what we can do is help the next generation, if you like, or even the old school generation as much as we can from our little corner. So any of those companies that are leaders in their space on these elements, we take a lot of inspiration from, and we try to absorb to our experience as much as possible. So that's in a nutshell just a few. There's a whole line, a whole list, but I'll give these guys a shout out. Yeah.
Yoni, I want to thank you for joining us today on the BuyBox Experts podcast. For those of you interested in learning more about GETIDA, please visit GETIDA.com. That's GETIDA.com. Join us again next time on the BuyBox Experts podcast. And now to finish today's podcast, I'd like to share some final thoughts. For third-party sellers to be successful on Amazon, a critical lever will be soliciting feedback from customers. We at BuyBox Experts are really big fans of the team at Ecom Engine and its tools that help Amazon sellers to simplify the process of messaging customers of Amazon orders. To learn more, go to ecomengine.com. And with that, I want to thank you for listening today, and I look forward to joining you next time on the BuyBox Experts podcast.
Thanks for listening to the BuyBox Experts podcast. Be sure to click subscribe, check us out on the web, and we'll see you next time.